Good evening, councillors. We now have 12 councillors present, and I expect the others will be joining us shortly. So I'm going to start the council meeting and declare the meeting open at 6:31 p.m. I'm Rochelle Porteous, the Mayor of Innerwest Council, and I'd like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal and the Wongal people of the Eora Nation, and to pay our respects to their elders past and present, and to leaders past, present and emerging, and to say that this land was never ceded, and this land is, was and always will be Aboriginal land. Councillors, are there any apologies for this evening?
Yes,
Councillor McKenna?
Porteous, Councillor Iskander is an apology.
Councillor Iskander. Any other councillors who are apologies this evening?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Passis is an apology.
Okay, thanks for that. No other councillors that are apologies at this stage? So can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the apologies of Councillor Iskander and Councillor Passis, please?
Moved.
It's moved by Hesse, seconded by Lockie. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's unanimous. I just need to talk to you now about the webcasting. As we know, in the spirit of open, accessible and transparent government, the council meetings of the Innerwest Council will be streamed live on council's website and YouTube. By speaking at a council meeting, members of the public agree to be recorded and must ensure their speech to the council is respectful and uses appropriate language. A person who uses defamatory, discriminatory or offensive language may be exposed to a liability for which council will take no responsibility. Any part of the meeting that is held in closed session will not be streamed, but will be recorded for the purpose of verifying the accuracy of the minutes. Councillors, we now move to a moment of quiet contemplation. If we could have a moment of quiet contemplation now, please. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to confirmation of minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes, please, from the 26th of October?
Moved.
Moved Hesse, is that right?
Yep.
And seconded Stamoulis. Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. We now move on to the public forum, and we have some speakers here this evening. The first speaker is for item 2, the summer opening hours for Ashfield Aquatic Centre, and it is Dylan Griffiths. Dylan, are you with us?
Mayor, Dylan does not appear to be in the meeting yet.
Okay. All right, we might move on to the next speaker and see if Dylan joins us afterwards. So the next speaker is for item 4, the local traffic committee meeting, and it is Olivia Hand, Ollie Hand.
Hi, thanks very much. I'm speaking in support of the recommendation to defer the development of design plan 10117 and to consult further with residents. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to address the meeting. Unfortunately, we were unable to address the traffic planning meeting, and the residents are grateful that Councillor Macri made himself available on a Sunday to come and talk with us about our concerns. I'm pleased that the plans have been deferred, and in anticipation of further consultation, the residents would like to know details regarding the accidents referred to in the plan development. Obviously, simply de-identified details of what, where, when and how. Sorry, obviously my kids are wanting to join in the meeting as well. It seems unlikely that accidents would have occurred at the location where the pedestrian island is being proposed. And I'd also like to know what efforts have been taken to survey the pedestrian traffic, as I know, being a resident here, that a great deal more pedestrian traffic crosses further west between the intersections of Perry Street and Addison Road and Shepherd Street and Addison Road. If it is required to be further east than that on Addison Road, then it should be placed east of Cook Road, where more people would use it, as the commercial developments are east of Cook Road. The proposal removes 5 of 7 car parking spaces. Can I just confirm everyone can still hear me? Sorry, it's a perfect time.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. The proposal removes 5 of 7 car parking spaces. A resident parking scheme, with all of these spaces removed, does not negate the inconvenience of losing spots outside our homes. So we strongly support a resident parking scheme. We do not support losing any spaces. And I'd use, for example, today I was returning from visiting my daughter's grandmother, and I was fortunate enough to get a park out the front here, which very rarely happens. And I often am left having to walk around with 2 kids and unpacking an entire carload of luggage, which means multiple trips. The placement of a bus stop in front of our homes is detrimental to the residents, especially us with young children and our neighbours who also has a young child. There's issues with safety, noise and amenity, and not just smoking. Although we understand it was raised that smoking is illegal at bus stops, we know that this isn't policed, seems like a pretty heavy-handed approach. The prospect of moving the bus stop introduces this as an issue. Placing the bus stop in front of houses would create a black spot on the corner of Cook Road. Cook Road has significantly more traffic than Denby Street, and this is another issue that would be introduced by moving the bus stop. We strongly support Councillor Macri's proposal for a 40-kilometre-hour speed limit and related signage as an alternative to the proposed pedestrian island, and we support mechanical traffic control such as speed bumps. Thank you very much for letting us address the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, I'm informed that Dylan Griffiths has now joined us, so we might go to Dylan next. Dylan, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Rochelle, and thank you, councillors, for letting me speak at the meeting. I'm speaking in support of item 2, the summer opening hours for Ashfield Aquatic Centre. I think it's important to see this also in the context of COVID recovery, which isn't just an economic recovery or a health recovery, but also a social recovery, and community public spaces like our swimming pools. I think, a key site that we should be looking for the communities to go and enjoy over summer. When I'm at Ashfield Aquatic Centre over the weekend, I generally go rather late, and it's always a busy time to get everything that you want to do done. And when I was there last Sunday, for instance, there was so many people swimming come 5:30, so many people in the spa and sauna, so many people in the gym. And yeah, it just seems quite an odd closing time for that popular facility, that popular council facility. And it being a public sector facility, I think the first thing that should come to mind for council is how can it benefit the community? So I'm really glad to see the officer's recommendations, and I want to thank Councillor Kia for commissioning the report to come to this meeting, and I would urge councillors to support it as written. I think 8 p.m. closing time in summer would just be such a huge benefit to the community. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for that, Dylan. Okay, the next speakers are for item 5, management of fishing in Council Foreshore Reserves, and we have Annette Hartman.
Thank you. For reasons I will explain shortly, my submission is that Council should continue to require preparation of the report that it first requested on the 13th of April 21. Unfortunately, the recent report, if it can be called that, falls very short of what Council asked for. In April, Council asked for a report that requested a number of things, which none of them have been done. Importantly, Council requires that there will be monthly community meetings for 3 to 6 months. 7 months have passed and there has been no community consultation whatsoever. Council also asked for a report that detailed information about the current cleaning and maintenance of the reserves. The current report does none of this. It talks about general rubbish removal, but there is no detail as to how the reserve is cleaned and maintained in relation to the critical issues of fishing litter, such as hooks, knives, sharps, etc. The tackle boxes installed were left unemptied for months and have since been removed in probably July. According to Parks Management, they don't know who removed them. Council also asked for a report that made proposals in improving this schedule in relation to early morning cleaning. This report does not consider making any changes to the cleaning schedule. It gives no reasons for any inability to make changes, and it makes no attempt to address early morning cleaning. Council also asked for a report of whether fishing can be limited to on-leash areas. There's no suggestion in the current report that such a restriction could not occur. The report, however, states that there would be challenges arising from any restrictions. The perceived challenges are: any restriction would be difficult to enforce, and any restriction would require undesirable signage. These considerations should be balanced against the public health risk from the fishing hazards. There is no attempt in the current report to describe the existing nature of the problem and its danger to the public. Surely this would be a fundamental first step to any proper assessment. Council should insist that its officers provide detail about the current risks that needs to be managed. I urge Council to take the view what the current report is, that the current report is not a satisfactory basis for moving forward, and to develop a better report that properly assesses what Council required back in April. As bad as the risk is to the public, was when this matter was last considered, as a result of COVID, the risk has increased substantially, as general park usage has multiplied many times. This would be a perfect moment in time to consider these issues on a whole: how to manage a dramatic increase in visitor numbers, environmental issues, litter, as well as safety to the general
Annette,
public.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but your time has expired. I'm afraid the clock has not shown up because we're sharing the screen. Did you need an extension of time?
Yes, if possible.
Okay, so do it now, Stanilos, and do I have a second? How long did you want to extend the time for?
27 seconds.
I'm
Well,
happy
just
to
kind of,
second,
in that
Michelle.
case, just conclude. That's fine.
As to the reasons and the views that regulations of fishing would face challenges, whether or not any regulation would be difficult to enforce is really besides the point. Council's foreshores already are littered with signs regulating activities that are equally difficult to enforce. This is not any kind of proper objection. The practical significance of signage is that it would assist to modify the behavior of at least some of the irresponsible fishing. Signage would also permit concerned park visitors to remind someone who is improperly fishing. As to the views that any restriction would require undesirable signage, this is totally unsupported by any attempt to analyze what signage might
I'm
be
afraid I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up if you.
and where it may be placed. Council's parks have many signs, including in iconic locations like Balmain East. There are bound to be locations that will be suitable and maintain the amenity. If a community consultation
Annette, sorry, I think we'll just move an extension of time. You obviously need more time. So it's moved by Stanilos, seconded by Councillor Hesse. 1 minute, okay. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, please go ahead. You've got another minute.
If a community consultation had taken place, residents could have offered information about where signage could be placed. I urge Council to develop a better report that properly addresses what Council required back in April. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak about this very important issue.
Thanks very much for that. The other speaker we have on this item is Margaret Bond. Hi, Margaret. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes, please go ahead.
I completely endorse what the points that Annette has raised. I think she's put them very succinctly. It horrified me when I saw that report that's been submitted to you, that it is just misleading. Like I just couldn't believe that a report would be put before you that simply put to you that these tackle bins had been put in place without mentioning the problems that had then emerged from the tackle bins. The fact that they were not empty. There was, despite the fact that the report suggests that there's going to be these every day for 6 days of each week, that the normal bins will be cleaned, but also a foot patrol will look at those tackle bins. It simply didn't occur. I've once seen, I go down to Allura Reserve each morning, I have once seen a council worker walk past the bin. This is early in the piece while the bins were still there, with one of those grabber things, and he picked up a coffee cup, and that's all he did the whole time he was in the park. Otherwise he read something, looked at his phone and then left. And so to suggest that these foot patrols have been monitoring the waste and the fishing waste is just inaccurate. But then it was surprising. We assumed in about June or July that those tackle bins, which were installed in the positions that you can see in the photos that were put in the report, we had assumed that the council had removed them because they just disappeared. And more recently, it turned out that the person who's written this report, he wasn't even aware that those bins had disappeared. And that then it seems to support the fact that the council workers, if they were meaning to do a foot patrol and were supposed to be checking these, simply could not have been doing it because it was never reported that those bins had gone. And we had thought that the council had simply removed them in about July. The only bin that is the tackle bin left, there's none in Allura Reserve anymore. There's one in Thornton Park, and Annette showed the photo of that one, that has been sitting full like that for days and days. In fact, I put in a complaint today about that to council because the same rubbish has been sitting there at least since I looked at it on Friday, and it was there. It's still like exactly like that this morning. So I just feel that the report that you've had put before you is simply inaccurate in creating a false impression that there is, in fact, a strategy that is being implemented and tested in the park. It is not being implemented, and it is not being tested, and is not appropriate feedback then that can be provided on that as a strategy. And so that's one of my main points. The other thing I'd like to raise is that the emphasis put in the report on signage and how it might interfere with weddings and photo opportunities seems to deny the whole purpose of the park. Like the park during the pandemic was I'm talking about Allura Reserve here mainly. It was just a magnet for families, for young children. The basketball court's never been more used. There are just so many people who've been running through the park and enjoying the park's benefits. And I'm hoping that that will continue now that school has recommenced and things. But we still have seen, very increased usage of the park by families, by young people. And to have the danger of hooks and fishing waste on the foreshore, where children run around, sometimes with sandals, sometimes without their shoes on, because they run down from the parks.
Margaret, I'm sorry, did you need an extension of time?
Oh, no, look, that's the main point. They're the main points I wanted to raise. So it's just simply the inaccuracy of the report. So I don't think it should be accepted in the form that it's in. And I think the fact that council needs to consider the users of the park and danger and preventing danger to the families and children that use it, as well as the dogs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, councillors, the final speaker is for item 8, the Mayoral Minute Condolence and Tribute to the Life of Max Stahl, and that is former Mayor of Leichhardt Council, Moira Sheehan. Please go ahead, Moira.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Oh, excellent. Now, look, I'm here with Luciano, who's the Consul General for in Sydney, and I'm going to hand over to Luciano because, of course, he knew Max really well, and Max has lived in Timor-Leste for decades before he unfortunately got very ill and died recently in Brisbane. So also, I'd like to acknowledge that Ros Dunlop, who's part of the Friends of Maliana, and we are the Friends of Maliana within Innerwest Council now, started off with Leichhardt, that Ros also, and when knew, of course, Max really well, and when he came to Sydney, he used to stay at Ros's house over in Roselle, and also all the traditional music that Ros recorded and went through all of Timor. That has been lodged with Max's library of recordings and music and recordings of activities. And also when we went to East Timor first, as it was at the time, now Timor-Leste, when we went there first, we recorded our first meetings with the local community and the plans about developing the community centre and the library, which is still running and going really well. Thank you very much for the council for continuing their support. And we also lodged that at Max's archive. But what I'd like to do from here is to actually hand over to Luciano. Now, we tried to get in on 2 different computers, so I'm going to just slightly disappear for 2 seconds and Luciano is going to come in.
Okay, and I'm just going to move an extension of time another 3 minutes if we're going to hear from Luciano as well. Do I have a seconder for that?
Seconded, Councillor Putties.
No, seconded by Councillor Hesse. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. Please go ahead, Luciano.
Good afternoon, councillors, and particularly my respect to Madam Mayor, as well as all other friends that join this particular Zoom meeting. As a Consul General of Timor-Leste here in New South Wales, first, my thanks for this particular council because of friendship that's been going for last 20 years between your council with Maliana municipality in my country. Max Stahl, that just mentioned by you and Maura, his role was part of few points that giving very important signal or evolution to the struggle of the people of East Timor. What you people knew here in Australia and particularly abroad everywhere, that Santa Cruz massacre was happening in the capital, Dili, East Timor, November 1991. For many East Timorese people like myself and others, it was only one of 100 or 1,000 massacre deaths happening under Indonesian military occupations. But because of hypocrisy, as well as East Timor that was totally blocked by Western countries, so no any other evidence before November 91 that other peoples can believe that. So we, the East Timorese people, were so lucky that during visit by UN Special Reported at that Peter Koymans, that also presence with almost 10 foreigners in that particular place, Dili, that Max was there with few colleagues, and the documents made by him were luckily sent abroad, and it was helping by an Italian missionary based in Japan, as well as a Dutch woman who can smuggle the documents until the hand of Western journalists. Of course, that particular event was politically, diplomatically, historically changed East Timor peoples, our struggling to find a solution, at least that we have the same right as other nations and other people. So today we lost Max Stahl. He's a great hero of East Timor. We acknowledge that, and my country, my state, awarded high recognition of what he was doing for East Timor. After independence, he decided to stay there with his family, with Australian wife and kids, and continue to contribute in many ways that my country and the people need for our memory, same as other nations and other countries around the world. I think this is a message that I would like to tell you. in contribution to what Max have done for East Timor. But I would like also to invite you that Timorese community here in New South Wales, this coming Friday on 12th of November in the afternoon at 6 p.m. we will have church service in Liverpool and to commemorate Santa Cruz massacre as also about Max's life. I thank you very much for all your attention.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Councillors, I'm going to move to suspend standing orders and return to item 4, which is the disclosure of interest. As Councillor Rossetti has indicated that she has a disclosure of interest that she needs recorded. So I'll move that. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Councillor Hesse. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm declaring a pecuniary interest for item 1, as my husband is on the board of Upper Leichhardt as the president, and my son's on the board as well. So I'll be leaving the meeting when that's on.
Thank you for that, Councillor.
Thank you.
Rossetti. All right, councillors, we'll now continue with the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is condolence motions, which I have a condolence motion, which is also a mayoral minute. And in fact, this refers to, this is a condolence and a tribute to the life of Max Stahl. Look, I think we are very privileged to be able to have our connection with Max Stahl, who is, was an extraordinary person and has had an enormous impact on the history of Timor-Leste. So we're celebrating and paying tribute to Max's life and the role he's played on the path to independence in Timor-Leste. And we send our sincere condolences to his family. And we're also I'm proposing also that we organise an exhibition, an event to celebrate and pay tribute to the work of Max Stahl in consultation with the New South Wales Australian Timor-Leste Friendship Network, Tiki Media and the Innerwest Friends of Maliana. I think it is really an extraordinary story, the work that the Friends of Maliana have done as well over the many years. And obviously they were working out of Leichhardt Council for a long period of time and strongly supported by Leichhardt Council in many, many ways. And I think it's something that all us councillors and ex-mayors and that of Leichhardt Council are very proud of the work that Friends of Maliana have done. And it certainly takes you to a higher level. This is I have to say, I'm not the author of this really beautiful tribute to Max Stahl. I thank Moira Sheenan for having provided me with the text for this. I think it is a wonderful piece of work to read. I might just finish by these words from Max. Sometimes dignity can change the world. For this insight, I thank those people who have resisted quietly, without bluster, in what seems like a hopeless cause, and showed that sometimes faith really can move mountains and values can share across generations, from mountains to cities, from a small island abandoned and forgotten around the world, can conquer ignorance, can conquer arrogance and murder against all the odds. I think very, very powerful words from somebody who has really made a difference in this world. And we thank the fact that he's actually been able to do that. So, councillors, would anybody else like to speak on this item? If nobody else would like to speak on this item, I'll now put this condolence and mayoral minute. All those in favour, if you could please raise your hand. And I believe that that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the next item on the agenda this evening is the item of the Innerwest light rail line. I think we're all very aware of what's happened over the last few days with the Innerwest light rail. Obviously, we had the announcement on Friday afternoon that what we thought was going to be a shutdown of a couple of months or perhaps just a month has suddenly become up to 18 months where the Inner West rail line will be decommissioned because of cracks that have been found in the carriages. This is an absolute disaster for the Inner West. It's a rail line which has been so popular since the first day it was in operation, and so many people rely on it for the fact that it does get them around the Inner West and get them to the CBD really efficiently without the issues of traffic congestion, of which we have many, and very fast as well. And also it's great from an accessibility point of view, the fact that it's actually been built with the intention of accessibility in mind. So we've got the lifts, we've got the good access onto and off the train carriages, which are so important these days. So obviously we are in contact with the Minister's office, and we're seeking to find out what ways we can work together. That's through an officer level. But we also need to be speaking directly with the Minister for Transport. And so the motion that I put before you tonight is, first of all, that we write to the Minister and request an urgent meeting to seek ways of working together in order to minimise the disruption that will be caused to our community by the closure of the light rail for up to 18 months. I mean, I've spoken to our officers about the sort of things that might look like. That could be, for example, looking at the bus routes. If there are better bus routes we can organise, helping with the parking of the buses and the stacking of the buses. We want to basically do everything that we can to make it as good as a bad situation can be, and it's a pretty bad situation. We obviously want to call on the Minister for Transport to do everything possible to get this sorted quickly and safely, and to get it back up and running quickly and safely. We note that the carriages are different to the carriages in the CBD and the Southeast Light Rail, and that is not great because they're not interoperable. So you can't switch them around basically, which is I think very poor planning. We are opposed, as we all know, to the privatisation of public transport, and essentially this is a privatisation of public transport. It's run by Transdev, and we don't know what's in the contract. We don't know what earnings go to Transdev, what earnings go to the state government, where the responsibility lies for the maintenance, what oversight there is. There's so many questions there about, you know, what actually happens there, because it is a PPP. What we're calling for is a standardised, publicly owned network of trams in Sydney, and trams that are fully integrated, safe, reasonable, and reliable and accessible. So we're calling on any buses that are providing the same level of accessibility. They need to be buses that have the floor opening and have that accessibility. So the most modern fleet of buses, basically. And we're also calling on the Minister to provide these replacement buses free of charge, because I did notice this evening the Minister, I might just need a short extension of time of 1 minute. It's moved by Lockie, seconded by Cruz. All those in favour? Thank you. Yeah, I've heard this evening that the Minister has now said that the replacement buses will be provided at half price, which is a step in the right direction, and I commend him for that. But it is reasonable, in fact, that the replacement buses should be free of charge. This is a massive inconvenience for our residents in the Inner West, and there should be no charge for those replacement buses. So we will continue to advocate for that position, which I note is also now being advocated by the Labor Party as well, which is absolutely great. More voices, the better. And finally, my Mayoral Minute is asking that we investigate opportunities to bring forward the in-corridor greenway works. There may be opportunities there if we are to have this longer period of time where the light rail is decommissioned. Perhaps we can get a positive out of a negative and get some of the works on the greenway brought forward to get them done quicker than was otherwise planned, so that we investigate those opportunities as well. So this is my Mayoral Minute. which I put to you. Now, is there any councillor that would like to speak on this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Please go ahead, Councillor Stamoulis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for raising this. This is a critical issue for the transport needs of our people. Basically, 70 or 80% of the line runs through the Inner West Council area. Madam Mayor, I would hope that any meeting that we have with state government on this, we let them know that this situation is absolutely appalling. I would hope that we also try to reach some agreement or obtain further information about the possibility of moving this forward, making an announcement within 24 hours and simply throwing out the figure 18 months without explanation to the public, without a series of options that might bring this service even partially back online faster than that. We're not getting good information, and I hope that the meeting that is attended by yourself and other staff will certainly bring these issues forward and certainly force other options on state government, whether or not some of the works can be done here. We don't know whether or not some of the works can be done here in the marshalling yards that are available. I'm just simply saying that other options have to be put on the table. We need to know what is going on, and we need to get the service moving to some degree of normalisation within a much shorter time frame of 18 months, provided that safety measures and safety checks are there. This is going to cause a severe impact on our people. There's a loss of connection for people who use that service. Workers are using it. People who go out in the evening. It's a packed service. It is one of the most desired services in the Inner West. But I really hope that we can do everything possible to see what options there are to at least get this get the service moving at least partially forward much faster than what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Stamoulis. Councillors, are there any other councillors that want to speak on this item?
Yes, please, Chair.
Please go ahead, Councillor Byrne.
Thanks very much. Forgive me, Mayor. I'm having a problem with my video at the moment. I'll try to fix it up momentarily. As you're aware, Chair, I've tabled a request with you for an extraordinary meeting to be held on this issue, which I tabled last week, and have also forwarded to you today an urgency motion for consideration tonight. I thank you for bringing forward the Mayoral Minute, which certainly has a similar thrust to the issues that I was seeking to raise. And I would request that the wording of that proposed urgency motion be brought forward now for consideration as an amendment to your Mayoral Minute. In requesting that, I just note that previously, in relation to Callan Park, I requested an extraordinary meeting and submitted a motion properly, and then subsequently at a ordinary council meeting, you tabled a Mayoral Minute which covered many of the same issues, but not all of them, and there was a division on that issue, amendments in which you used your casting vote, and that extraordinary meeting on Callan Park was never actually then convened. Whilst I'm open to discussing with you at the conclusion of tonight's meeting what would happen with my request for an extraordinary meeting in regards to the light rail, I would like to note that I don't want to continue with a practice in which extraordinary meetings are not convened properly as they're required to under the code of meeting practice once a proper request has been tabled. Moving on to the substantive issues of the amendment, I think the first point, which is to seek a meeting with the Transport Minister, can be deleted. I do think the second point about establishing a consultative group to make it easy for transport to engage with all of the stakeholders is worth consideration. I'd ask you to incorporate that into the primary motion.
Yeah, happy to do so.
And also include the reference to in point 3 to the minibuses. I don't know if they're a good option. I do know that a lot of people are talking to me about how much of an impact the coaches have on the local traffic network, and I don't think that's sustainable. Certainly not across 18 months. So if there's a formulation of those words which you would consider incorporating as well, that would be good. And then lastly, to seek advice from the government about the expedition of the recommencement, as Councillor Stamoulis was alluding to. I think we do need to push that point as firmly as possible. 18 months is far too long, and it has to be within the capability of government to expedite that. We've just been through a pandemic in which the government has responded very speedily, much faster than people would have thought possible, in New South Wales at least, on multiple occasions. So this is also an emergency of a different kind. We can't have the main artery of the Inner West being blocked for that long a period of time. So I'll ask you to consider amending that as well.
Okay, so look, I'm happy to incorporate convene the consultative group, happy to incorporate the school principals and PMCs. Look, my only concern with the minibuses is the lack of accessibility. So if you're happy to include the words, the use of accessible minibuses,
yeah,
because I don't want people who are relying on light rail to suddenly find themselves locked out.
Yep.
So just we could add that word, accessible minibuses, that's fine.
Yep.
Seek advice from the government about options being explored to expedite the route. Yeah, of course, the seek advice. Yeah, I think it's sort of, it's repetitive a bit, but that's fine. We could incorporate that. Now the petition, I haven't seen the petition. I don't know if it's who is actually leading the petition.
That's fine. Just leave it out. I don't think we can ask people to vote for something that they haven't had a chance to have a look at. So.
Okay. All right. So all the rest are incorporated. Thanks for that, Councillor Byrne. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor, is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Councillor Cruz, please go ahead.
Yeah, look, I don't think we can emphasise enough.
We can't hear you very well, Councillor De Cruz. Any chance?
Oh, it's unfortunate. I thought I tested it before, but anyway, is that better?
That's better, yeah.
Okay. Look, I don't think we can emphasise enough how serious this is. I mean, we consider ourselves an international city, and we shut down a whole transport route completely for 18 months is just ludicrous. So I think, thank you for bringing this motion, and I echo the words of both Councillor Stamoulis and Councillor Byrne that this is really quite unacceptable not to have this important transport system, especially since there's so much development that's occurred along there, and that this is really the only transport mechanism available to so many residents of the Inner West. And to get to work, to get to see their friends, there's so many requirements, and also there'll be workers coming out. I know that the state government has prioritised the link from Learfield to the city for perhaps bringing that on board earlier. And of course, we know that that's just because the casino's on that link. We have still school children, and perhaps I was thinking that whether that be worthwhile, and perhaps that's been considered in both your motion about your point about buses and Councillor Byrne's point about minibuses, that we actually look at that the state government actually looks at providing specific bus services for specific groups, such as the school kids for each of the different schools that rely on that link currently. So thank you for bringing this motion. And yeah, we can't emphasise enough how terrible it is that a major transport route is being taken out of action. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Cruz. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item?
Chair, just a question.
Councillor Macri, please.
Chair, I'm just concerned about one of the amendments about asking for minibuses, because I don't know how that's going to work. Can anyone give me the capacity of a light rail train?
270, as
So
compared to a bus is 80. But do you want to go to an officer for that?
Well, I just need to know how many minibuses will you have to run to actually get the capacity of a light rail bus as opposed to a bus of 70. I can do the 70, but what's the capacity of a minibus?
Okay, so okay, so do you want to go to an officer for that? I'll put that to the relevant officer.
Through the chair, this is Ken Welsh, Strategic Transport Planning. Through the chair, the minibuses would range from about 24 seat to 32 seat, and you would have multiple minibuses, obviously. The question with minibuses is you may not go one stop at a time. You may have more minibuses and make them more direct routes, so going direct to Central from different stations rather than doing a station hop.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Macri?
Yep.
Thank you for that, Ken. Okay, councillors, did you want to speak to this, Councillor Macri, or?
I feel a little bit sort of challenged by this because there's a lot of moving parts in this motion and a lot of issues here, and I'm not New South Wales Transport, so I don't know what the challenges are. So I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I'd like to work with them to deliver a better outcome for the community, but going into areas where I don't know enough about it, I am concerned.
Did you want to ask any questions to the council officers, Councillor Macri, for clarification? Or
I would have probably preferred a briefing on how the system will work, on how the replacement buses will work. I don't mind asking. Well, we've asked for a reduction in the price, and they've come down to half the price. That's fine. But
the replacement buses are already working. Obviously they've already got replacement buses. That's the only option they've got.
I would have preferred something more in a detailed briefing. Seems we have a lot of time if they're going to be offline for 18 months. That's all.
Thanks for that, Councillor Macri. Are there any other councillors that want to speak on this item?
Councillor Porteous, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Hesse. I was hoping you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, the former station master in me can't quite resist. Look, obviously, and as you've said, this situation, and in fairness, Councillor Byrne has also said, is a shocking event. And I don't think any of us who care about public transport in the city have not noticed the deliberate policy of the current New South Wales government from when Gladys Berejiklian was Minister for Transport right through to Andrew Constance, that the efforts of the New South Wales government have been to reduce the connectivity of our system. That's been a deliberate policy, from everything from converting the line from Chatswood out to the northwest of Sydney to make it inoperable with the existing Sydney train system. A deliberate and malicious policy. They may as well have made it a different gauge. Because in fact, this is what we're doing. We're actually going back to the 19th century where different states had different gauges. This time, the New South Wales government has made sure that they're not different gauges, but they've got different operating systems. They've got different rolling stock that can't work with each other. This is a form of lunacy. And I think the gutting thing is that I thought that it might be just future generations which would be cursing this government down the halls of history. But we're actually cursing them right now for mucking it up in a shocking way. I'm actually lividly angry about it because it just didn't have to be this way. I note the calls of building this in Australia. I support those on the grounds of good policy. However, bad design won't stop the problem. But what will stop the problem is where you've got a totally interoperable system where you can have carriages from one line running on another line. That's what you need to do. As far as operating this system, I'm sure we'll get the government, well, I hope the government will operate it in a sensible way. That is, you throw a lot of buses at the beginning and you see what happens, see where the people go. Some, no doubt, will, particularly at the further out ends at Dulwich Hill, at Lewisham, will catch the train on the Sydney Trains network. Some, I guess, closer in from Lilyfield might make use of the existing bus services, and hopefully the Transport Department will make efforts to look at the routes they've got there and perhaps put on regular additional services over the next 18 months if it takes that long. But I really do hope that the government and the opposition, and indeed there probably should be an upper house inquiry in New South Wales about the failure of this system, because this is a very, very serious problem for not just the people of the Inner West, but in fact the people of New South Wales, who must look at this and go, can this government actually operate a public transport system? I think, unfortunately, the people in the West are the guinea pigs who found out the answer is no. I am, just beyond disgusted. We've known how to run public transport for 100 years, 150 years, and yet this lot have mucked it up, mostly because they're viciously anti-union, and additionally because they're flogging off bits of it off to their private enterprise mates. I'm sorry for being rather blunt, but I am not happy. And I think everyone who uses this services on a daily or weekly or monthly basis has every right to be lividly angry at the failures here. And the state government should make it free because it's their fault and they've mucked up the lives of people on this line. It's not acceptable. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Councillor Hesse. Councillor, is there any other councillor that would like to speak on this item? Otherwise, I will go to my right of reply. And I think Councillor Hesse has spoken so eloquently and so passionately about this issue. I will waive my right of reply and consider my right of reply as well. So, councillors, I'll now put this mayoral minute to you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Drury, are you there? So I think
yes, I am there.
You're in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. All those against?
Okay. Pip.
So Councillor Rossetti, you're against, yeah? And I think Councillor Macri has left the room. Oh, you're against, Councillor Macri? Yeah.
No, I'm not against, man. I'm
You're
for.
Okay, you're for. So Councillor Macri, you for or against? Councillor Macri, are you against or for? Against. Okay, so that's Councillor Macri against and all other councillors for, which is 12 for and 1 against. Thanks, councillors. So, councillors, the next mayoral minute is in relation to the Western Harbour Tunnel. This is building on the work we did previously on the Western Harbour Tunnel, in particular looking at the issues around where things are not happening that should be happening. So the first part of this with the Western Harbour Tunnel is we need this health study. We've been asking for it for a long time. It's simply not happening. So I think we need to seek a meeting to urgently request that this comprehensive health study be done to look at the documented impacts of the West Connects and the predicted impacts of the Western Harbour Tunnel. It's critical, not just in terms of air pollution and the mental health issues, but also in relation to the Western Harbour Tunnel, the water pollution and the kind of impacts that's going to have on people's health as well. So I think that's important that we do this. This is also seeking information about the compulsory acquisition of the Balmain Tiger site. I am continually asking what's happening with that, and we don't seem to be getting a reply. However, theoretically, we have scheduled that the utilities are supposed to be being connected between the Balmain Tigers site and the Roselle Goods Yard, I think next month. But obviously that's not going to happen unless they decide to compulsorily acquire the sites. We need to know what's happening because that has a very significant impact on the local area and on the impact generally of the Western Harbour Tunnel. I'm proposing that a report be brought to the next council in February about the costings for a comprehensive assessment of the cumulative impacts. This has simply not been done, and it's a huge gap really in looking at what's going to happen when all these infrastructure projects basically are starting at a very similar time in the same area. You know, we've got the Western Harbour Tunnel, we've still got West Connects, we've got the the West Metro West. We've got some very big development sites as well, likely to go ahead. We've got the White Bay, we've got the potentially we've got Balmain Tigers site, and the list goes on. And we need to know what that looks like, because our own submission that we made on this to the parliamentary inquiry said that had this study been done, that they would not have gone ahead with the Western Harbour Tunnel because the impacts would be so severe, so untenable in every sense of the word, that they would have to be canned. It could not go ahead. Now, if we've got our own officers saying that in a submission, we really need to get that information, because I'm really worried about what that means moving forward with this Western Harbour Tunnel and the impacts on, you know, all of the Balmain Peninsula and Lilyfield and Leichhardt and Annandale, and are going to be huge. We need to have that information. So that's the report coming back in February, and looking at residents and their homes and their businesses, particularly looking at the fact that a lot of the tunnelling that's going on is going on under heritage properties right along the Balmain Peninsula. We had a SAT-SCAN agreement with West Connects, which provided council at no cost with scans which showed the impact of the ongoing demolition with the tunnelling on West Connects. So I'm requesting that we also ask that they now provide that for the Western Harbour Tunnel, so that, I mean, we want to stop the Western Harbour Tunnel going ahead, obviously, but we also want to prepare our residents as best we can. So I'm proposing that at least they're able to get scans now of what the terrain looks like before any tunnelling starts, so that they'll have a before and after, but also that that's obviously at no cost, but if we also want to pursue that further, that we look at the costings for that to be also provided on an individual basis to homeowners, and bring that information back to the first meeting of the next council, again, so that they consider how they want to proceed with that. But I think ideally you would want to be providing that extra level of assistance to people who are likely to have their homes and businesses impacted on by the tunnelling. And finally note that obviously we're having an online public meeting on Thursday night on the Western Harbour Tunnel, where our council officers will be speaking, the ward councillors will be speaking, and we'll also have an environmental expert speaking on specifically on the pollution of the waterways from the tunnelling. So councillors, I put that Mayoral Minute to you. Would anybody like to speak on this item?
Yes.
So I've got Councillor Stamoulis and Councillor Steer.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, in terms of the letters that are being sent, I assume that they'll be sent after the public meeting, the letter to the Minister and also the CEO of SAT-SCAN. I believe we may find out additional information from our public meeting, the one that you've called, Madam Mayor, that might be useful to before you send that correspondence off. Additionally, if you agree to it, I believe this is such an important mayoral minute that I believe that we should also be sending it to the Mayor and CEO of North Sydney Council. I think a joint effort there, in particular the harbour pollution issues, which will be affecting both sides of the harbour. If we work jointly on those, we might find that there's more effect. Additionally, some of the pollution aspects on our assets, such as the Dawn Fraser Baths, which we've only recently opened, it would be useful to add some content there about the impacts, and again these are impacts on our community, their use and access of this amenity, this tremendous amenity, and it also puts these things out of action as well over a period of time, should there be concentration levels higher than usual of pollutants. So I'd see that it's being at risk as well. But in terms of an amendment, I would hope that you'd accept that we send this Mayoral Minute also to the Mayor and CEO of the North Sydney Council. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to include that, Councillor Stamoulis. Councillor Steer? You're on mute, Councillor Steer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for reminding me about that. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and thanks to Councillor Stamoulis for his comments as well. Even though I don't come from this area belongs to us all because it's part of the LGA, and many of us drive through it or visit it on a regular basis. And I have to say, Mayor, I am tired of the state government treating our local government area as nothing more than a passageway to other places. We've put up with this for a really long time. First of all, they wanted us to be a dumping ground for coal seam gas. When they got over that, they built WestConnex, which we've been dealing with now for the last 7 or 8 years, and which has caused tremendous disruption and heartbreak and despair amongst our residents. And it's still going on to this day with the Roselle project. Now we have the Western Harbour Tunnel. Yet more drilling, yet more grinding, yet more creepy noises in the night, and more disruption to our beautiful harbour and to the people of our LGA. It is absolutely appalling that this project is being thought of when we have been, particularly when you take into account what has happened with the light rail being put out of action for the next 18 months. How are the residents of the LGA supposed to get around while all this work is going on? And why are the residents of the LGA being put to so much, not just inconvenience, but displacement and emotional despair from having to put up with this constant work? When will it be finished? When will it stop? When can we go back to normal? From the work the state government is doing, I think the answer is nothing. We even have the threat to Callan Park, where they're threatening it with commercial businesses and who knows, probably laying the way for residential housing in the park in the future if they change the legislation. And the decisions are being made not by people who are elected, as we are, to represent the LGA. It is being done by people in suits who live far, far away in the eastern suburbs and the North Shore, and whose homes are safe, whose sleep is undisturbed, and who don't have to put up with the pollution, the noise, the grinding, and the complete inconvenience of what's happening to us. They are the ones making decisions, and it's time we had to make them stop. So I really commend your efforts in this area, and I fully support them. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Steer. Councillor Lockie.
Yeah, just a few questions about the item 0.6 within this, about the ground movement data. So just to clarify, with the costings that you're saying we should request for individual data, is that intended to apply to residents along the WestConnex route as well as the Western Harbour Tunnel route?
We could definitely include that, yes. I mean, I guess I was specifically thinking Western Harbour Tunnel, but I would be very happy for that to be included. If any residents needed it for the WestConnex as well, yes, we should include them.
And do we know if StatScan provides individual reports as opposed to actually, probably first question before that is, have we got the general data from StatScan yet? Because I know we passed that motion some time ago to publish that on our website, and I've had some requests from residents for that information. I'm happy for you to put that through to a relevant officer.
Yeah, I will put that through to the relevant officer.
Thank you, through the chair. We recently met with StatScan in mid-October to discuss progress on the project. Unfortunately, they have been delayed in their works due to COVID. They have to use their supercomputer in the office, and it was outside the 5 kilometres through lockdown. So they've now advised that they're looking to provide that information in the first quarter of 2022. So we've updated our website to provide that information.
Okay. And look, either to you, Chair, or to Mayor, or through to the relevant officer again, do we know if they actually provide individual reports as well as the general reporting that we had discussed previously?
I'll put that again to the Director for Infrastructure.
Thank you, through the Chair. I'm afraid I don't know that, but we could certainly find out.
Okay.
So we can take that on notice then. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Did you want to speak to this item, Councillor Lockie, or?
No, I think you've summarised it very well. We've seen this all before with WestConnex. We know how this story ends if they keep ploughing through with it. So, you know, very important we take the stand.
Yes, absolutely. Another meeting with Rob Stokes. he's got a lot on his plate at the moment. Councillor, is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'm happy to waive my right of reply, and I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So that's Hesse, Porteous, Cruz, Kiat, Rossetti, Steer, Stamoulis, Lockie, Drury, York, Lucille, Councillor McKenna, Macri, Councillor McKenna, yes, McKenna, and Councillor Byrne, you're in.
I'm in support, Chair.
In support, thank you. So I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, the final mayoral minute is in relation to Callan Park. This is a proposal which we may or may not have to go ahead with, which is to be prepared to fund a full-page advertisement in the Sydney Morning Herald when and if it's confirmed that the Greater Sydney Parklands Trust Bill goes up to Parliament. The concern is that as those of us who were at that meeting with the Minister and the Minister's advisor will remember that the conversation afterwards clarified that the Minister was wanting to get this bill to Parliament in this term of Parliament. In fact, the date of mid-November was flagged, approximately the 15th of November, which in fact would be next week if that is to happen. So it could all happen very, very quickly. And the important thing that we want to try and make sure is that this doesn't get through Parliament. I think there's a lot of concerns across both MPs and between ourselves. While we may all have different opinions about some elements, I think the bill in itself is of concern. We don't want that bill to go through in its current form. I personally don't want it to go through at all. And I know the Greens are strongly opposed to it, but it is important that that doesn't go through next week. It's in no way has there been enough consideration, enough scrutiny, enough consultation. This is so rushed, it's almost obscene. So we do need that to be stopped, and we need to step back and reconvene on this issue. So the proposal is for an advertisement to go into the Sydney Morning Herald, calling on members of Parliament not to support it. The wording of the advertisement would be in line with resolutions that have been passed by Council and in line with the submission that was lodged by Council. And the funding has been identified in the communications budget. The cost is approximately $10,000. As I said, this may or may not have to go ahead, but if it does need to go ahead, it would probably be next week. And therefore, I would like your support for us to be prepared to fund this. And we just need to pull all the stops out to make sure that this doesn't go ahead. Because if this bill goes ahead, if it's passed by Parliament, it will be a disaster. And I don't think we want to be the council remembered as the council that brought that to Callan Park. So I'm hoping that I have your support on this. Councillors, any councillor like to speak on this item?
Yes, please, Chair.
Councillor Byrne.
Thanks very much. I'm in support of your proposal with an important caveat that I want to address. I asked for advice from the council officers about a month ago, written advice from the Electoral Commission and from the Office of Local Government in regards to our statutory obligations in the regulated period in regards to political communication. One of the reasons that I was concerned about that was because of the very forthright comments from the planning minister in the paper recently to say that he thought it was an improper use of ratepayers' money and dishonest. I don't agree with either of those propositions necessarily, but I do want to be very careful to ensure that in the regulated period we are not doing anything that will be perceived or could be found to constitute electoral communication. Obviously, that the signs are very critical of the government, and rightly so, on this piece of legislation. But that is, obviously, because the interpretation can be subjective, that's something that we should consider. So I understand that we've still yet to get back any written advice from the Electoral Commission or from the OLG. The Electoral Commission are really the important ones. If they give us the all clear to say that they're confident that we're not breaching any of the rules, and there's no problem. So I wonder whether we could get that advice quickly so that we're in a position to publish the ad if needs be, but knowing that we are covered legally and that we're not in breach of any of the electoral provisions.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Councillor Byrne. I assume that would also include the Bunnings ads as well that we've also agreed to do, but we haven't actually done yet. Look, I'll put that to the General Manager. I might need to direct it to the relevant officer.
Yeah. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I will direct it. We've had some conversations, and I know Bo-Jane was speaking to OLG today and the Electoral Commission as well, so I'll hand over to her.
Okay.
Thank you. And through the Mayor, we ran past this specific motion with OLG and the Electoral Commission. They are comfortable that it does not breach any of the regulations in regards to the regulated period or the caretaker period. They are very comfortable with this motion as it stands.
Oh, thank you very much for that.
Can I just, sorry, just one question further, Mayor. Can I just ask then, if it's as straightforward as that? I've been asking for this advice for a month. So I'm still going to move an amendment that councillors be provided with the written advice from the Electoral Commission and the Office of Local Government in regards to the advertising. That way we're all completely covered. So I'll move that as an amendment to the motion.
Okay, thanks for that. Can I just get a clarification as well from our General Counsel? Governance. Governance from Governance Senior Manager about, are we able to get that written advice reasonably quickly?
I have an email from the OLG specifically in relation to this motion that I can forward immediately.
Okay, beautiful.
And the Electoral Commission?
The Electoral Commission advised that they deferred to the OLG on this matter.
Okay, thanks for that. Can I just ask how long we've been in possession? Just with great respect, I've been asking for this advice for at least a month. So if I could just put a question to the General Manager about when it was received and why it wasn't provided before now, if Council's in possession of it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, when we received the advice previously, our Acting General Counsel rang and spoke to both parties and both the Electoral Commission and OLG and gave me his outcome of the phone call, which I did forward in relation to a matter to you. In the lead up to today's meeting, the governance, our Senior Governance and Risk Manager has reached out to both parties and got something in writing which she'll forward through. And that was today.
Yeah, okay. I'll just request publicly but respectfully that where legal advice is requested by a councillor, that it be provided as soon as it's available rather than having to wait to the council meeting.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Byrne, Look, I'm happy to add that if you want to but I think it's going to be sent to all the councillors anyway, the email. So
well, I've been waiting a month. So if you're comfortable with including it, I'd feel more comfortable with voting for the motion, because I think we're all then covered and we don't have Rob Stokes turning up saying that we've done the wrong thing.
yeah, okay. So, all right. So we'll add that as an amendment, point 3.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Okay. Councillors, are there any other councillors who want to speak to this item?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Stamoulis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for raising this. I believe that it strongly taps into the feelings of our community on this issue. I also think it taps into the feelings of wider Sydney about the changes to governance of our parklands, as well as government actions in changing acts overall, I think is very relevant to wider Sydney. Madam Mayor, today, as part of a delegation of the Friends of Callan Park, I attended Parliament House to hand over 5,300 signatures gained in a short amount of time as a petition to Parliament about these changes. Councillor De Cruz was also in attendance, and Greig's candidate for the Balmain ward, Kobe Shetty, was also there. So it was great to see activity amongst the councillors in that attendance. But what we're saying here is the level of concern is huge, over 5,300 signatures in a small amount of time. And I do believe that this is a wider concern for the overall Sydney public, and I commend this Mayoral Minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stamoulis. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'm happy to waive my right of reply, and I'll now put this Mayoral Minute. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And Councillor Byrne, I'm sure you're in favour. I can't see hand, but I'm sure you're in favour.
That's right. I'm in support. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Macri, are you with us? No. Okay, so that's 12 for. Councillor Macri is absent. That's 12 for. Unanimous with Councillor Macri absent. Thanks, councillors. Councillors, we now move on to the items on the council business papers. The first item is item 1, fee waivers for sporting fields.
Happy to move, Councillor Porteous.
So that's moved by Councillor Hesse. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor McKenna?
Happy to second.
Oh, I think Councillor McKenna had her hand up first. Sorry, Councillor Drury. So that's moved by Councillor Hesse, seconded by Councillor McKenna. Councillor Hesse, did you want to speak to that item?
Only very briefly, I would encourage all councillors to support this. We want to make sure our sports will get back to play next year, and I wish all of them an uninterrupted season, as I'm sure we all do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna, did you want to speak to this item? Okay. Did any other councillor want to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair.
Please go ahead, Councillor Macri.
Chair, I'm just concerned that our sort of assistance to the clubs hasn't equal Canterbury Bankstown and Canada Bay, where they've waived the annual fees for next season, not refunding this season, but actually waived the season because of the interruption to the season. I thought that was probably a better way to go, and the only councillors that haven't matched that, councils are the smaller unamalgamated councils of Burwood and Strathfield. And I look at the financial implications, it doesn't seem that far of a stretch for council, but to the struggling clubs that haven't been able to actually let children play, and they probably had to refund their fees as well. These are the community clubs. I thought, considering what assistance we've given so far, we haven't really given them any assistance, because we've given them back the fact that, oh, well, you can't play, we're not going to charge you for that. But your season, they've given them half of something, but they haven't really given them anything, because you can't charge for something you don't use. So what assistance have you actually given them? I question that.
So, Councillor Macri, did you want to ask the council officers to make comment on why what other assistance has been provided, or?
Well, it's clear that what it says is we're providing ground hire credits opposed to a refund to community-based sporting clubs for unutilised bookings. So, well, they're not assisting them because they didn't use the grounds. It's written in the recommendation. So I don't think I can support this. I think if I want to assist the clubs, it says the financial implications, the extension of the fee waiver will result in additional income loss of $230,000. Well, in this large council, wouldn't we actually do that? And considering that the grounds didn't get the wear and tear that they got, you'd think there will be some savings in maintenance other than cutting the grass, which we would have had to do anyway. So I won't be supporting the motion. I'll move a foreshadowed motion that we do what I initially suggested, and that is credit them for the next season, not to refund them this year, but credit them for next season. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thanks for that. If you could make sure the minute taker takes that down accurately. I might just get the relevant officer to make comment on what Councillor Macri has just said about and why we're not crediting them for next season instead. If I could put that to the relevant officer.
Through the chair, Council's Parks and Recreation Manager speaking. The council staff in the report have highlighted that the grounds were used for a number of months prior to the lockdown period. So the winter season did start, and the fees and charges, the clubs had all paid their fees and charges. We have gone out and consulted the clubs on this report, and we have got feedback that they do support credits for next year occurring, and that will ensure that all the clubs have equality of access in terms of the current fees and charges. So the fees and charges previously were based on the former 3 council fees and charges, as opposed to the harmonised fees and charges. It also needs to be noted in terms of the comments that were made, that our parks and open spaces areas, particularly our sporting grounds, have been opened through the pandemic with the lights left on throughout the pandemic period, and they have been heavily utilised by the community, so much so that we've had to do extensive renovations to our sporting grounds. And councils, we're aware that there are a number of reports being sought for, have been presented on Eastern Park for refurbishment, and also Centenary Park for major refurbishment. So the parks have been heavily used, and we are having to have to do those refurbishments. So there are no cost savings in that area.
Thank you for that. Is there any other council that wants to speak on this item? No. Councillor Macri, I don't have your foreshadowed motion here.
I'm just typing it up now, Chair.
Okay. Is there a seconder for Councillor Macri's foreshadowed motion? Okay. Councillor Macri, I don't think there's a seconder for your foreshadowed motion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's fairly clear that the officers just noted that damage was done by the general public, not by the sporting clubs, and we haven't assisted the clubs in any way. Basically, that's what we've done. That's our COVID contribution to our community sporting clubs. That's all. So no one wants to second the motion. That's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Macri.
You're not important.
Okay, so councillors, if there's no more discussion on this item, I'll go to Councillor Hesse for a right of reply.
Unnecessary, thanks, Councillor.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesse. So I'll now put the Hesse-McKenna motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that is 12. And all those against? And Councillor Macri against. There's 12 for and Councillor Macri against.
Mayor, may I move the next recommendation?
Item 2, I believe that's being moved by Councillor Kiet, is that right?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Porteous.
And who's seconding that is?
I'll second it.
Oh, that's Councillor
Councillor
De Cruz
De Cruz.
seconding it. Okay. So that's moved by Councillor Kiat, seconded by Councillor De Cruz. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Kiat?
Yeah, look, I just want to thank the officers for this report. I think it's very clear that it's a change that would be welcomed by the community and be well utilised, and so much so that it may even be cost neutral. I don't think that really needs to be the goal, but it's always a plus. And I think that, based on comments from members of the community that are using the pool, it is a bit early to be closing, especially as, daylight is extending into 7 and 8 o'clock at the moment. And it's such a great facility. It's a real waste, actually, to see it close at 6, particularly with, the other facilities that it has, not just the pools. So, look, I think it is a really good time to be doing this. I really look forward to seeing the result. And it may be that we want to extend it further, into the whole of the daylight savings period. But that's something that we can look at after we see it successfully done this summer. So thanks everyone who's been involved, and of course, Mr. Griffiths, who spoke tonight.
Thanks for that, Councillor Kiat. Councillor De Cruz, did you want to speak to this item?
Yes, just briefly. Look, I think it's a great thing that we've spent a lot and we've developed a beautiful facility there in Ashfield. We did lose the community centre in the bargain, and this is actually now a central place for the local community to meet. And I certainly earlier on put a motion to extend the hours at Leichhardt last year, or previous years, and I think that's really important that we do provide these kind of facilities where the community, the young people, can meet as an alternative to going and hanging around shopping centres. So it's really important that our libraries, our swimming pools, and our community centres are open for extended hours so that our community can make good use of these facilities, which we've spent a lot of money on developing. And it's gratifying to know that the staff think that there'll be enough demand for the pool, that'll be cost neutral. And of course, the more we use the pool, the overall investment makes it very worthwhile. So thank you for extending the hours, and I commend this motion to all the councillors. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor De Cruz. I've got Councillor Drury.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank the officers for this report. And I note, importantly, it is believed by the officers that this extension could be achieved in a cost-neutral fashion. That is predicated on 2,000 visits during the period, and I hope the users of the pool do use it to make it a cost-neutral result. I would like the officers to continue to monitor the situation in terms of attendance. We have had an example in the Innerwest in the past of extending hours where it became obvious that it wasn't a useful exercise. So I do hope the officers will continue to monitor and report back to us in terms of the visits and make recommendations. Now, there's some suggestion here that the cost neutrality is a kind of not an important point. And as someone who has studied and worked on questions in relation to aquatic centres for a very long time, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. All those facilities are subsidised by the community, and I think subsidised for good reason. Just as our sporting fields are all subsidised, and I support that. And just as our libraries are free to users, I support that. But I don't support notions of not caring about what these things cost, because it is important. I have noted, and some people have pointed out to me, that in the lead up to the election, there are some people proposing to spend a lot of money without indicating where that money will come from or what things the council won't do if they do what they are suggesting. And this does concern me. I'm very proud of the fact that we have been fiscally responsible and that we did have a slight surplus at the end of this period. I'm also very pleased that in terms of the promises that are being made by Labor candidates in this election, that they are all within the existing budgetary frame of the Inner West Council. Because simply promising to do things that you cannot afford or not caring about the cost is irresponsible. Completely irresponsible. Back to this, I support this wholeheartedly because the advice is we believe it'll be cost neutral. I urge people to use it, so it is that way. And I'm looking forward to a twilight swim just as much as the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drury. Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak on this motion? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Kiat for a right of reply. Oh, sorry, Councillor Macri, please go ahead.
Chair, I'm happy with the basis that we're making our facilities more available, but for me, the report lacks an important component, and that is the community consultation. I don't know if other councillors have received any emails about the impacts of the operation of the centre. I certainly have, regarding traffic and parking and noise associated with the operation, early hours with the loudspeaker and associated noise with certain sports that are being played, training early in the morning. I'm a bit disappointed we haven't consulted the community on this, and there's not a component here of that. Why have we left them out? I thought we were a council that actually consults. Was the community consulted with this?
Did you want to put that question to the relevant officer, Councillor Macri?
Yes, please.
So we'll put that to the relevant officer, please.
That's to Simon. Simon, your microphone on, mate? Or Graham?
Is that something you need to take on notice, or are you able to respond?
I think we might to Madam Mayor. I don't think we would have done any engagement with it. I think we've just worked it out, but it looks like we're having a technical difficulty. I can take it as a question on notice unless Simon's going to work now. Is that working, Simon? Can you talk? No. So I'll take it as a question on notice, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Kiat for a right of reply.
Thank you. Yeah, look, to Councillor Macri, obviously the idea is from the community and users of the pool. But yeah, I do note the concern you've got. I have, seen the correspondence from some local residents about the noise in the pool, and I did see that Mr. Duck is looking into how we can, within reason, abate some of the noise in relation to the early and late use of the PA system. So I mean, obviously they live next to a pool, but I think that we can take action within reason to address, excessive noise. And look, I won't respond to Councillor Drew's comments. I'm sure they weren't about me or any of my comrades. So, but I'm glad that this proposal is COTS neutral.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Kett. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that is unanimous. Yes, thank you, councillors. Councillors, the next item is the item 3, the Innerwest Council annual grants. I'm happy to move that. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Lockie. I was just going to add a one amendment to that, which I have sent through to the minute taker. So the motion reads that councils approve the funding recommendations for the Innerwest Council annual grant program. I'm adding an amendment that consideration be given to the development of a grants program in a 2022-23 budget, which provides small grants to local Main Street businesses to improve accessibility to their premises. I guess this was something that I was actually talking to our Economic Development Officer, Billy Cotis, about, and I think it's something that would actually be really beneficial for us to explore further, because I mean, we're already providing different types of grants, like our live music grants, where we're providing grants to enable live music venues to improve the facilities that they have, so that they are able to better deliver live music and provide a better experience for patrons. And I thought, you wouldn't really need that much money to get a better access to a lot of our shops and cafes and restaurants that are along the high streets, because quite a lot of them actually have steps into the premises, which is obviously completely impedes people in wheelchairs, but also quite a lot of people with mobility issues. And I think with some incentive, with some grant funding, we might be able to get better access on some of those shops and cafes and restaurants, which is a win-win, because for them it's more customers that are able to access their premises, but it's also a win for the disability community, because it enables them to get access to places that they're not able to get access to at the moment. So I would like that to be a consideration in our grants program next time that we are developing our grants program. Is there anybody who, sorry, I'll now go to Councillor Lockie. Did you want to speak on this item, Councillor Lockie?
I'm happy to reserve.
Okay. Is there any councillor that would like to speak on this item?
Yes, just very quickly, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Scanners and Councillor
Madam Mayor, I'm very happy with the summary data that councillors has presented for us. I think it provides a lot of very, very useful insights. And I have one very quick question there. It does seem to me that in terms of the number of applications, the grant funding, there's a great degree of variance between each of the categories and how much funding they're getting and how much was applied for. I'm just wondering through the chair, if I could ask the question, will there be some review of the allocations at some stage, and also possibly even the rating system, so that more can get grants, or it can be categories will change? Just a quick question through, if I could.
Okay, I'll put that to the relevant officer. Or to the General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Maybe there's something wrong with Caroline's there.
No, I'm here. I was through the chair. Yes, that is something that we can easily do with the next term of council, is review the grants and the allocations, and they were reviewed a couple of years ago, where we looked at offering 2-year grants, but it is something in terms of continuous improvement that we are happy to do.
Not a great line there, Caroline.
We do, apologies, we do evaluate the grants and the allocation of the funds, but it is something that we can continue to do and have a look at, especially if there is any new categories that the councillors would like us to look at.
Okay, thank you for that. Is Councillor Stamets, were there any other questions you needed to ask? Wanted to ask?
That's all.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna.
Yes, well, of course, I would support your proposal for making businesses accessible, but I don't think we can ask businesses to spend money on making things accessible when our footpaths are not accessible. They're just absolute disgrace at the moment. There's absolutely no compliance with current policies. There's things on both sides of the footpath, on very narrow footpaths, are literally blocked. So I think we really need to, I was happy to support this, but we're talking about next year. I think we need to, especially with the increased outdoor dining, all of that stuff is great, but just somebody needs to get out there and do some compliance and make sure that you can get along these paths. You just can't pass them. Less than a metre of available space is not enough for somebody in a wheelchair. And considering where I was today, and I actually took 2 photographs, I mean, they're almost next door to a facility that has day centre for people with a disability, and you can't get past. So it's an ongoing problem, but we seem to forget that large percentages of people in our community have a disability, and we should be making things accessible. Thank you.
Hear, hear. 100% with you, Lucille. Okay, councillors. Are there any more councillors that want to? Yes, Councillor Macri.
Thanks,
Councillor
Chair.
Cruz.
A long time ago, when I was mayor, I launched what they called was a little booklet, and it went out to all the shopkeepers. I think it was called the Missed Business Guide, and it clearly stated what businesses are missing out on by not having their businesses accessible, particularly to wheelchairs and just even mothers with prams. You know, it's just strange. And, you know, people look at my shop on Mayoral Road and they see this big gap under the door. And what it is, it's because the ramp's there. It actually comes in handy because my business papers, even how big they are, fit under the door. So Ron doesn't have to come all different hours to get to me. But I think maybe we should actually relook at that. We already have that information and distribute that to businesses across the whole Inner West. I think it was called the Missed Business Guide. It actually was the impetus for me to look at our shop and actually get a disabled toilet put in. So that made it more comfortable. It doubles up as our female and accessible toilet. And the ramp to enter the shop is so important. Yeah. So I think that's the path we should go down. Perhaps not so much a grants program. I think it should be incumbent on the businesses because they will benefit from it. Definitely. I've got a lot of disabled clients that come in their motorised wheelchairs. And as I said, mothers with prams that feel comfortable coming in, and even older people that struggle to sort of step up. It's really important, but a big benefit to the businesses. But we have to show them the benefit, and that's what that Missed Business Guide did.
Thanks for that, Councillor Macri. I had Councillor Cruz.
Yeah, look, I'd love to see a report come back on how we can make our streets much more accessible. I know of an Annandale resident who is wheelchair bound from the age of 17 as a result of a car accident. Really quite tragic. She's now just recently moved into an aged care facility in Ashfield where I visited her. But I actually noted that, I mean, you would catch up with her at the local coffee shop. She would do her shopping at the local supermarkets, the little supermarkets. She would stand outside and the shops would assist her. Looking at Ashfield, there is no way I could meet her and say, let's go to the local cafe. The streets are just too narrow. There isn't accessibility, and she won't even be able to cross, I think it's Holden Street or one of those streets leading in Ashfield. There's no safe crossing points for people to get across. This is for people in wheelchairs. This is for the elderly who may be on walking frames. This may be people with prams and cyclists. And so there's so much to be done in our community to make it much more accessible for people in wheelchairs, people who may not be able to sprint across the road to avoid traffic. And on our footpaths, I mean, look, I think the issue of the width, the greatest risk to the elderly and on our footpaths is speeding bicycles and scooters. So there's so much consideration other than the businesses possibly blocking footpaths. People getting to these businesses from their home, they have to avoid driveways, not get hit and those kind of things using the footpaths. And Carol actually decided that trying to keep up with me was just trying to walk back with me was just too slow. So she actually took off down the middle of Hill Street in Leichhardt. So there's much to consider in mobility around the LGA and accessibility, and then also within each of the businesses to actually get into the business, and then also, as Councillor Macri has pointed out, to actually have bathrooms and toilet facilities that are suitable. So I'm just wondering if perhaps we can have a report be brought back rather than just having consideration when the budget comes up for grants, that we have a report to look at all the different aspects, how we can improve accessibility across the LGA. Thanks.
I'll second that.
Thanks for that, Councillor De Cruz. I'm just aware of the fact that this is a grants. I don't want to stray too far away from grants. I think the issue of accessibility is really important. Perhaps we could reword my amendment to say that a report be brought to the first meeting of February on the development of a grants program. So so that we get a report coming to the first meeting of the February 2022 on the development of a grants program, which provides, just say maybe grants, not small grants, provides grants to local main street businesses to improve the accessibility in and to their premises. Have you managed to capture that, Catherine? So we'll have a report coming back to the February meeting, just to give something a bit more substantial.
Yes, I have.
Thanks for that. Okay, and in terms of the accessibility for the footpaths, maybe we could capture that in the Gladstone Park motion, which does talk about footpaths. Okay, councillors, there's no more discussion on this item. No other councillor wants to speak on this. I'm happy to waive my right of reply. We've got that amendment to the point 2. I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. The next item is item 4, the local traffic committee meeting. Do I have a mover for that? That's moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Macri. Is there any councillor that wants to speak? Councillor McKenna, did you want to speak on this item? No. You've got a legacy hand up there, Councillor McKenna. And Councillor Macri, did you want to speak on this item? No. Is there any councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, Councillor McKenna, you don't want a right of reply, I assume. I'll now put this. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. The next item is item 5, management of fishing in Council Foreshore reserves. Is there a councillor that wants to move this item? Councillor McKenna, did you want to move this? Yeah, Councillor McKenna is moving it. It's seconded by Councillor Stamalos.
No, I've got an alternative.
Okay, you want to move an alternative motion? Okay, so that's moved by Councillor McKenna. I'm happy to second it. So seconded by Councillor Porteous. Councillor McKenna, did you want to speak on this item? Didn't want to speak on this item. I'll speak briefly to it. I think I am concerned with the comments that were made by the two speakers, basically saying that we're not delivering perhaps what has been outlined in the report. I do think that needs further investigation, and I think that we should probably be organising an on-site meeting as soon as we can down there, and preferably perhaps ask if the General Manager could be present for that first meeting in terms of being able to give it the due importance that I think it should have to make sure that residents know that we are taking their concerns seriously. I think that we need to get this right. There are competing users of the space. It's a much loved area, the Foreshore area down in East Balmain. I was delighted the other day to see a whole group of young kids all going down with their fishing rods to do some fishing on a Saturday morning. I think it's wonderful how fishing is embraced by people of all ages and all different backgrounds, and it's quite a fun thing I think that people are able to do down on our foreshore. But obviously we want to make sure that we're managing the risk as best we can, so that everybody who wants to fish can fish where they want to fish, and that people who have dogs or young children are also aware of any risks and that they're being managed, and that we're doing our job in terms of litter and signage and doing the ensuring that we have the facilities down there to be collecting the tackle when it is going array at the end of a session of fishing. So there are some issues that I think need to be addressed, and I would suggest that I would like to add an amendment to the motion, which I've just seconded, and that is that an on-site meeting be convened with local residents and the General Manager and Ward Councillors be asked to attend to consider the issues that have been raised by speakers and in the report to Council. So I'd like to add that as an amendment. So I'll now go to Councillor Stamalos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll wait for my motion to be put up because it may now be very similar to yours, which is good. We'll wait for that to go up on screen. Thank you. Now, I've said here that Council defer this item until Council undertakes further investigation early in the next term of Council, which may be consistent with what you've said, Mayor. But from my perspective, this has never been an issue about whether people can fish or not down at the parks on the foreshore. It's an issue about how the parks are left afterwards. Are they left in a safe way? The hooks and the sharps are very problematic. We are lucky enough to have foreshore parks, and that means there's great demand for use of those, both by our residents and by visitors to those parks. They need to be safe. In fact, every one of our parks, no matter where it is, needs to be safe. So this is about litter and safety and how we manage that, while also continuing the current activities that take place down there. So it's not about stopping any activity. It's about making sure that litter and safety are prominent issues as well. COVID itself showed us the huge demand that there are for our parks, and councillors are quite aware that with the ratio of open space, 804 people per hectare, the Innerwest population has 804 people per hectare of open space, which is double the Sydney average. Our parks need to be in a state where they're usable. They need to be in a state where they're safe. So I'm suggesting here that we defer this item and take place a thorough investigation with the sorts of consultation that Madam Mayor, you're proposing as well. So alternatively, either motion to me that achieves that objective, I will support. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that, Councillor Stamalis. Councillor McKenna, I'd be happy to move my amendment as the primary motion and have it that's point 1, and this point 2 would be that council defer this item until the on-site meeting has been held, and then this item be reconsidered at that time.
I'm happy with that, but I do need that Councillor Stamalis foreshadowed needs to change. It's not correct. It should say until community consultation takes place, not community council.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. In fact, I've changed that to until the on-site meeting takes place.
Oh, well, whatever.
Then the item be reconsidered at the time. The reason being that I think there's probably more elements that need to go into this report than are currently there. So there's probably going to be a bit of rewriting needed on the report. Yeah. So we'll remove that council receive and note the report, remove amendment Porteous, leave it as McKenna Porteous. So number 1, an on-site meeting, and number 2, that council defer this item until the on-site meeting takes place early in the next term of council. Yep, that's great. So, and remove foreshadowed motion, that just becomes one motion now. Yeah. Is that good, Catherine?
Yes, that's fine.
Great, got it. Yeah. Okay, councillor, is there any more discussion on this item?
I just have a question if I can, Councillor Porteous.
Councillor Hesse, yeah.
A question through you to the staff. One of the residents mentioned the removal, that the fishing waste bins had been removed, and expressed concerns about them being emptied. I was just wondering if officers could give advice on the status of the fishing waste bins and if there's a plan to remove them if they have been removed. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hesse. I'll put that to the relevant officer.
Through the chair, there is a process underway at the moment to replace the bins that have been removed from the park. And there is also a review of the cleaning of those bins being undertaken and the cleaning of the foreshore. There are morning cleaning sessions and foot patrols by the staff being undertaken in terms of the waste services staff of the foreshore areas, and that has been highlighted in the report.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Councillor McKenna, did you want to have a right of reply? No. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Kiat, are you with us? Yes. Councillor Macri, are you with us? Councillor Macri? No. Councillor Byrne, you in favour? Councillor Byrne? Okay, so I think it's that's 11 for, and I think Councillor Macri is absent and Councillor Byrne is absent. Yep. Have we captured that, Catherine?
Yes, I have.
Great, thank you. Councillors, the next item is Gladstone Park toilets. I'm happy to move this as this came from my initial motion. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Stamos is seconding that. Look, I'll just speak briefly to it. I think really this, to be honest, when I read this report, I guess my first question was exactly what Councillor McKenna raised in terms of the footpaths, that the footpaths had been assessed, but not really in terms of accessibility. They'd been assessed in terms of how old they were and whether they had a pothole that needed to be filled, but not in terms of do they actually work. Okay, that that we needed to actually also do that sort of assessment. I mean, something that I notice being a wheelchair user is the slope of a footpath is terribly important now. Not just the slope as in directional slope, but also the slope as in when
Sideways
you're
slope.
going along and you have a dislevel between the two sides of the road, and therefore you end up traveling on your side almost, which is a very unpleasant experience. And there's quite a lot of our footpaths that have that, and I find that extraordinary when it's not that difficult to actually have a flat footpath instead, which is so much better from an accessibility perspective, which then for me brought up the question, well, are we doing accessibility audits of our footpaths, or are we just doing audits of the state of them, physical state of them? Because what we want is footpaths that can be used by as many people as possible. And I think, it therefore, raised that issue about we don't really, I think, do that. But I might ask the General Manager to make some further comments on what formally we do in terms of auditing our footpaths for disability access.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So, yeah, thank you. So depending on the nature of where the footpath is, the assessment that was done around Gladstone Park was a condition assessment, but there's another body of work that we're doing, which every council does, but we've just completed, is our pedestrian access mobility plan. Every council does one. Ours has just been redone, and it's actually going to the traffic committee next week. It will identify all major routes that lead to shopping centres, major destinations like hospitals, also public transport nodes, and will audit and identify any issues that have problems with accessibility. That report, as I said, will go to the traffic committee in November. It misses the cutoff for the November council meeting, but we could actually do a separate report based on that to the first meeting in February, or to a February meeting, which gives plenty of time for the councillors, the new council, to consider what work needs to be done resulting from the PAMP that could go in the new budget for the following year.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. So this is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Stamos. Councillor Stamos, did you want to speak to this item?
Yes, very briefly, Madam Mayor. I was quite astounded, and I use that area like yourself and Councillor Byrne do. We know that area very, very well. I was quite surprised when I actually saw the photos at that state of some of the paths. So I welcome your motion, Madam Mayor, to actually highlight this. It definitely needs, there definitely needs to be improvement, certainly in our parks and around our parks, because we know there's high traffic in these areas. There's great demand in all of our parks throughout the whole municipality, and I think this is certainly highlights that it should be an area of a focus for council. It doesn't matter whether it's the Cooks River, Gladstone Park, at Enmore Park. We should be looking at the quality of these pathways, because they are highly used. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Stamos. Councillor, is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Please go ahead, Councillor De Cruz.
Okay, I've got another disabled access, and I suppose I've never gone back and checked whether the crossing from the hospital into the park has been fixed, because I certainly would have reported it when I was visiting a patient who was, some time ago, she was a patient in that hospital, and I offered to take her out into the sunshine for a break, which is, I think, really valuable to enable people to be taken, of course, pre-COVID, but to actually go out and sit in a normal area with normal people, with kids running around, people playing sport, whatever. So yes, I was concerned, and I guess I haven't actually checked the detail of the PAMP to see whether that has, but I would have reported it to council about 10 years ago, I'd say, or 5 years ago, something. So
Councillor
I hope
Cruz,
it's in the PAM from then.
They have done a new pedestrian crossing there.
So I know that the PAMP is the amalgamated PAMP, but it would have been actually to come into the Leichhardt PAMP 10 years ago, I hope. I think Ashfield hadn't adopted their PAMP, so hopefully we'll be adopting that PAMP, which when it comes to council, and this should have been on it because I actually reported it 5 years ago. So it's an issue about whether you can have access into the park as well as within the park. It's an issue of where you can sit with someone in a wheelchair. So the benches, there are benches, but they're not connected to the footpath. So if you were in a wheelchair, the person in the wheelchair gets stranded at the path, but then the person who they're with needs to sit on the bench. So those kind of considerations need to be given to how we design our parks and for accessibility and those kinds of things. And I think there's a similar issue in, come to think of it, there's a ramp into Pioneer Park and Norton Street, but then there are benches just in the middle of the grassland, so you wouldn't be able to get to them from a wheelchair, and there aren't benches to sit adjacent to the path to sit with someone in a wheelchair. So those are all sorts of the considerations we need to make up paths, to make our parks more accessible and inviting to people who would be out with a wider group of people who may be with an individual confined to a wheelchair. Not only a wheelchair, as I mentioned previously, the issue of walkers for elderly people. The doctors linearly recommend that elderly people get walkers to stop them from falling over. We actually need to make sure that they are accessible. We're putting in age facilities around Norton Street, which is wonderful, but it'd be really good if those people are not trapped in there and they can get out and walk along Norton Street and interact with the general community. So reward coming back on how we can improve accessibility across the council would be really worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, is there any more discussion on this item? Otherwise, I'll waive my right of reply and I'll put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, Councillor Macri, are you there? Yes, I saw a hand. Councillor Macri, you're there? Yep.
Sorry.
I believe that's unanimous. Yeah. Okay, so the next item is the final item, I think.
Moved.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Drury, seconded by Councillor McKenna. Did you want to speak to the item, Councillor Drury?
I didn't even want to move it.
I moved it. It's Councillor Hesse, sorry.
Councillor Hesse moved.
I'm acting like Councillor Drury.
Okay, Councillor Hesse, Councillor McKenna. Did you want to speak to the item, Councillor Hesse?
No.
Did you want to speak to Councillor McKenna?
No.
Did any councillor want to speak to this item? No. Okay. No councillor wants to speak to this item?
We should also get a report on how many of these go to the Daily Tally.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Councillor Kiat. Okay, Councillor McKenna, sorry, Councillor Hesse, I'll go to you for a right of reply.
That's it.
No right of reply. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Now, councillors, I understand that Councillor Byrne has sent an email around about a urgency item. Councillor Byrne.
That's right, Mayor. That's right.
So I'm not sure if everybody will have read their email. To be honest, the general manager alerted it to, because I wasn't reading my emails, obviously. So it might be worthwhile if you could actually read it out so everybody knows what it's about.
Yep, no problem. Thank you. It reads that council install banners notifying the community of the dates for election day, pre-poll, and information about voting. The banners should be installed on town halls and other highly visible locations, including on or adjacent to all pre-poll locations. The cost is to be allocated to election costs.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Byrne. So I first need to rule on urgency. I'm happy to rule that this matter be considered urgent. We now have to vote that this matter be considered, that this motion be considered. So I'll put that this motion be considered. Do I have a seconder for that?
Well, I'm the
Councillor McKenna. I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. So, Councillor Byrne, if you, we need a seconder for that. Is there a seconder for Councillor Byrne's motion? A seconded by Councillor McKenna. Councillor Byrne, did you want to speak to this motion?
Yeah, just briefly, thanks, Mayor. I think we'd all agree that the level of awareness about the election in the community is lower than is good for democracy for a variety of reasons completely outside of our control, largely COVID. But nonetheless, I do think it's incumbent upon the council to try to build awareness of that prior to pre-poll commencing. The only other issue that I know is addressed already in the stuff on council's website and on the Electoral Commission website, but is also about encouraging people to vote before election day. We don't want a lot of people turning up on the 4th of December. If most people have voted before, then that will be better for public health. So I'd like to move that motion and hope that it would be supported uncontroversially.
Thanks, Councillor Byrne. Councillor McKenna, did you want to speak to this?
No, but just to comment, I know we've got banners up at the moment about vaccinations. Are they still needed, the vaccination ones? So we might look a bit, have banners on banners at the moment. So maybe.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I wouldn't have two banners in the one location, but we'd be able to space them out throughout the LGA, and
right.
We can get it to work.
Righto. Thank you.
Right. Councillor, is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor De Cruz.
I guess it might be to the head of library or community services. It's about access to our computers in the libraries and stuff for iVote, and whether we're going to give any assistance if people do need to access computers for iVoting. I confess I'm not quite across iVoting of who can and who can't, but have we got any sort of preparation to make our computers available for that to the relevant officer?
Okay. Put that to the General Manager.
Look, Caroline can embellish it if she wants. We provide access to computers for the community. They can book them. The library's at full capacity, I understand, at the moment. I can't see if anyone wants to use it for iVote, that they can. Postal voting's also and pre-poll. But Caroline, do you want to add about iVote or access? Maybe not. They would have access, Margarita, more than ever at the moment, because I think we're back to pretty much full capacity.
Okay. Councillor, is there any other councillor wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Byrne for a right of reply.
No need, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that's all those against. No, I believe that's unanimous. Okay. Thanks, councillors. And we can now close the meeting at 9:15. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye.